My name is Denny Russell. I'm the coordinator of the Antioch University Writing Center out at Midwest Campus, and I also am a graduate of the Writers Program in Creative Writing. I found that the purpose was the hardest part for me too, was to find out, I'm excited to write something or I'm excited to learn something and to report it, but I get lost in all the reading that I do. So I first started using outlines just to keep me on track. My outlines at first were really just a one-page, remember what you're writing on, this relates to it, this relates to it, this doesn't. I think when I mention outlines, people think of the old St. Martin's Guide. I don't know if you remember, like the 1A, Roman numeral 1. I think they think of that when they think of outlines, and you can't fit all ideas into that incredibly complex, formula. Drafts and outlines don't have to be long. They don't have to be organized or neat or look pretty. They can be as messy as, the student needs them to be, as long as they understand it. A lot of times a student has done a lot of reading, they've done a lot of research, but they don't know where to start. They bring a lot of extra stuff into research. And it's like they lose their intention when they have all that extra research. And so when they come in for our interview, I sit with a notepad of paper and I say, tell me what you've been reading. And they start to talk. And in speaking, they're forced to draw from what they've read to they're forced to piece it together for me. And so as I'm taking notes, they start to get an idea of, oh, I see the trends of where we're going. And then when it comes to asking a couple of questions to help them hone their intention, that's really all they need, and then they just go off and write it. To me, students come to university and they have this idea that they need to know everything already, especially when it comes to writing. And Midwest Campus in particular draws from a particularly diverse populace that hasn't been writing a lot. So when they come to the writing center, they come to me and they're embarrassed, or they're ashamed, or they feel like they're being punished because their teacher told them to come. That's something that I found right away I had to work with. When I first became a writing consultant, I could do the verb tenses, I could do language, I could talk about punctuation, but when you're a student and you're crying in front of me because you feel like your teacher hates you, or you feel like your teacher doesn't think you know your stuff, that was the component that I had to say, no, the teacher sent you here because he or she wants you to do better. They see potential in you. It was really me recognizing that I had to reach out to these students. I've been writing as craft or as research oriented for years, but putting it out there was something completely different. So I think the best advice for me was to realize that writing is uncomfortable, and it involves problems and problem solving, and that's just going to be a natural part of it. And so instead of shying away from those discomforts like we usually do with discomforts, that's the definition of courage, is to stand there even when it's hard or painful, or you're afraid of it, or you're nervous about it. That was the best piece of advice for me, was to keep going. And to show things to other people. If you're talking about courage, it can be about writing, or it can be about showing, or it can be about publishing, or whatever. So I think that's the best, because I have a lot of fears and anxieties about what I write, very naturally, just in terms of family members, what they might think of what you write, whether people might dispute what you write or argue it or say that it's wrong, whether you might seem other than professional in what you write. There's a lot of different psychological barriers that stop people from writing. So I think that just knowing that there's another dimension to it, and that it's a dimension that will not go away, that was very helpful to me.